Gentlemen, he was saying, the state has not produced one iota of medical evidence to the effect that the crime that Tom Robinson is charged with ever took place.
He took advantage of me!
To begin with, this case should never have come to trial. This case is as simple as black and white. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. We are in the mid-1930s. These are the years of the Great Depression. We are in Maycomb County, Alabama. Tom Robinson, a strong, young, black man, has been falsely accused of the rape of a white woman, Mayella Ewell. His lawyer, Atticus Finch, is educated enough to be free from the low-grade prejudices of most of his townspeople. Mayella is miserably poor. She is criminally uneducated, and she has been taught by her society that the person's moral character is determined by the color of their skin.
Where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream.
In other words, she has been robbed even of her critical thinking. That is, she is to be pitied.
You felt sorry for her? A white woman?
I have nothing but pity in my heart for the chief witness for the state. But my pity does not extend so far as to her putting a man's life at stake, which she has done in an effort to get rid of her own guilt.
She says for me to kiss her back. And I said, Miss Mayella, let me out of here. And I tried to run.
This is the guilt inculcated by a society that holds that it is a crime to desire or to love or even to see oneself in those who look different. To assume that somehow color equals moral character. A pitiful miscalculation. The witnesses for the state have presented themselves to you, gentlemen, to this court, in the cynical confidence that their testimony would not be doubted. Confident that you gentlemen would go along with them on the assumption, the evil assumption, that all Negroes lie, that all Negroes are basically immoral beings, that all Negro men are not to be trusted around our women. An assumption one associates with minds of their caliber. And here, morality, ethics, character, good and evil are judged to be inseparable from human physical form, a kind of despicable ethno-ethics. And if color is the locus of the stigma, even worse, a laughable type of melanin morality. The underlying evil assumption of racism itself is this very assumption, that skin, or hair, or bone, that is, basic superficial, physical features somehow produce one's moral character. In other words, that morality inheres in ethnicity. That is as far and as shallow as the myopia of racism is able to see. It is skin deep. Atticus continues, you know the truth, and the truth is this. Some Negroes lie, some Negroes are immoral. Some Negro men are not to be trusted around our women, black and white. But this is a truth that applies to the human race and to no particular race of men. Harper Lee, in excavating the nuances of racist thinking and feeling, its basic anthropological psychology, that is, more correctly, its animal psychology, introduces another, very important but mostly overlooked character, Harper Radley, who is in fact a symbol and embodiment of the fears and superstitions of racism itself. Arthur, whose nickname is Boo Radley, is a recluse, an object of fear because he is unknown, a bogeyman, the other. The incredible yet palpable point that Harper Lee is making here is that Tom Robinson is black and Boo Radley is white, but for both, it is not knowing their moral characters, in other words, not knowing them as individuals, that is the basis of their being looked upon with fear and contempt. Alas, even self-evident truths need to be unflinchingly restated. and the main entertainers of this fear levied against Boo Radley are Atticus's young children, Jem and Scout Finch. And in this, Harper Lee reveals something to us as readers, and hopefully as thinkers. And what is revealed is that in fact racism is a kind of infantilism, one which belongs to and should be cast off into the childhood of the human race. An infantilism whose ignorance is sustained by what Atticus describes as the inability to climb inside of one's skin and walk around in it. A clever and fitting double entendre. In her 1970s book, Developing New Perspectives on Race, Patricia Padva manufactures a stipulative definition of racism, and I'm sure you've heard it. According to her, racism is prejudice plus power, by which she means racism is racial prejudice plus institutional power. This definition has been picked up and ran with, without his peddlers ever questioning its logic.
Black people can't be racist. Prejudice, yes, but not racist. Racism describes a system of disadvantage based on race. Black people can't be racist since we don't stand to benefit from such a system.
The consequences of such a definition are that since non-white people, it is said, have little to no institutional power, then only white people can be racist. And black people, brown people, and people of all other colors, essentially anybody who is not white, is incapable of being racist. And so we ask, what is sexual prejudice? What is class prejudice? What is age-related prejudice? So then, what is racial prejudice? Logic will take you there. To Kill a Mockingbird emphasizes the question, might it be that the idea of color in relation to grasping human beings is the very problem in itself? The eminent evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins tells us in The Magic of Reality, in the chapter Who Was the First Person, that there was no first person, that the idea even of species itself is specious, in that fundamentally species do not really exist. Species are a way that we taxonomically and therefore cognitively divide up the world in order that we may apprehend it. But in fact, all life forms exist along a continuum. He says,
every animal, every person ever born belonged to the same species as its parents. You can take that back as far as you like. It's a kind of fortunate accident that all the intermediates are extinct, which is why we can divide the living kingdoms into separate species. But if all the ancestors were still alive, then there would be a complete continuum between every creature and every other creature, going back to the common ancestor and then forward again. And as you go back, every single generation, there never was a Homo erectus parent who gave birth to a Homo sapiens baby.
The idea of people being different colors is the same, in that it raises the question, where does black end, for example, and white begin? Are we meant to believe that browns are gradations in between? What a silly idea. Is not the idea of color in relation to human beings unavoidably immoral and racist at its very core? The idea of people being different colors is also just a way that we divide up the world, that we may understand it, or fail to. But there is hope, for recognizing this fact, recognizing this cognitive shortcoming, it is my hope that we are able to see that such categories should not even be applied to human beings, and that we must transcend such simplistic ideas if ever we are to attain to the dignity demanded by our humanity. For all of Atticus Finch's moral rectitude, the argument in his closing statement as to the case being as simple as black and white is in fact a rhetorical move, a means to sway, because the truth is never as simple as black and white. The world is far too nuanced for that, too full of not just color, but ideas, sound, fury, degree, detail. There are economics to consider, cultures, religions, non-racial identities and ideologies, temperament, and above all, the unfathomable depth of the individual. Scout says, Atticus told me to delete the adjectives, and I'd have the facts. And it may be that the ultimate question in this book of human tenderness and nuance is, why a mockingbird? Mockingbirds don't do one thing except make music for us to enjoy. They don't do one thing but sing their hearts out for us. That's why it's a sin to kill a mockingbird. Perhaps it is the case that we need to listen to and hear each other's music. We may even learn to be moved.